From his unimaginably hard childhood, to the challenges he's faced throughout his career, to his rise to fame, the NBA legend Allen Iverson faced a ton of hardships in his life. Let's start with his childhood. Born in Virginia in 1975, he was the son of an unmarried 15-year-old who worked hard to feed her child. He started playing basketball not just in school, but on the streets of the city so that he could earn a few bucks. In fact, his high school coach said that the little boy didn't always know where he was going to get his next meal. And you know what was worse about all this? His house. Even though the mother and her son both worked, struggled, and hustled, it was sometimes unbearable for them to go home. Apparently, there had been a severe sewage problem in their house where it became nearly impossible to breathe because of the stench. And it's sad to even think about the time when he almost didn't make it out of there. He got involved in a fight. The basketball player realized early on that racism was stronger than school spirit. He was 18 when he got into a fight at a bowling alley. And when the dust settled, there were two very different stories about what happened. Iverson and his friends said they were called racist names, but the other side said they were just attacked. The next trial had witnesses who backed up Iverson's story, but at the time of that verdict, he'd been in prison for 4 months, and the law he was convicted under was shocking. After the Civil War, there was a law in Virginia called maiming by mob, and was written to make sure that mob violence, which often led to the injury and death of black Virginians, was punished legally. Iverson was given a 15-year sentence because of this law, but thankfully, in 1995, it was found that none of the claims that led to the harsh sentence were true. Still, the unfair punishment he got ended up hurting his career in a bad way. He was stripped from almost all of his opportunities. Can you believe the NBA star almost didn't make it? When he was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2016, he thanked Georgetown coach John Thompson for his whole career.
I get the impression in listening to folks that you're whining or you're moaning or he's complaining or where is this stuff coming from too?
Considering how his mom practically begged him to give her son a chance. But why? Well, before he was found guilty in the bowling alley fight, big schools like Duke tried to get him to play for them. In fact, he had about 30 different offers from top schools, until all of a sudden, nobody was willing to give him a chance. Even though he was proven not guilty, no one would give him a chance until his mother went to talk to Coach Thompson in person. And when they did, let's just say a lot of people weren't particularly happy about it. But as soon as the man stepped onto the court, everyone knew he'd be the next big star. Although, unlike many other stars, it wasn't the fame he was after. In fact, part of the reason he went pro was to help pay for his sister's medical bills. In 1996, when he was a sophomore, he and his coach held a press conference to announce that he was going pro at a very young age.
Give me an assignment. Tell me what you want me to do out on the basketball court to help us win, and that's what I can do.
But as much as his coach believed in him, he wasn't sure the kid was mature enough to handle the lifestyle he was going to be stepping into. A but followed that statement though. Iverson decided to go pro early because he needed the money. At the press conference, he said that his little sister at home was very sick and needed medical help right away. So the money he made from the NBA was going to pay for the medical care she needed. Speaking of, remember the time when he used to wear compression sleeves? It wasn't just for a style. What was interesting was that at least one sleeve was worn by 65% of the players and 3% wore 4. That made people wonder if they needed it or if it was just a trend. And when they asked the players, many of them said they didn't need it. Iverson, on the other hand, wasn't trying to make a fashion statement. Apparently, it used to help him relieve the pain of bursitis, a very painful condition that can happen to a person's joints, especially if they move them over and over again. Rest is the usual treatment, but for a professional basketball player, that's not an option, is it? He wore the stockings at first because he wanted to avoid having surgery to fix the problem. And it was eventually replaced by custom sleeves from Under Armour, which started the fashion trend. Still, it didn't help him avoid surgery. That same year, he had to have surgery on his elbow. And to add insult to injury, he broke his finger not long after he got back on the court. As if things weren't worse enough for him, he even got sued over his nickname. Many sports stars have urban legends made up about them, and Allen Iverson was no different. Even more so, people say it's not a myth, it's 100% true. And that's the claim that he was once taken to court because of his famous nickname, The Answer. The lawsuit had its start when Iverson was still in school. Jameel Blackman, a family friend, sometimes helped him and his struggling family, and by this time, Iverson was already a star athlete. Blackman came up with the idea to call him The Answer, to which Iverson later agreed to pay him 25% of all the money the nickname brought in. And so, a deal was struck with Reebok, and the shoes had Iverson's nickname on them. It's safe to say that it made a lot of money, but Blackman never got his share and had to sue the player. In the end, it was decided that there was no case, mostly because the name wouldn't have meant much without Iverson's skill and athleticism. And when it was decided that there was never a real contract to begin with, Blackman ended up with nothing. That wasn't all. His daughter was diagnosed with a severe illness. In 2010, The Answer shocked his fans. The basketball legend was leaving basketball, and there was no sign of him coming back. He had already said that he would miss at least 8 games, but he had a very good reason. His 4-year-old daughter was sick, and he wanted to be with her. At first, it was said that he wanted to spend some time with his family and then go back to court. He said that he had to stay with his team while doctors tried to figure out what was wrong, so he left his wife and kids behind. Iverson didn't say much about what she was going through, but pictures of his daughter posted to Instagram seemed to show that everything worked out in the end. That reminds me, what is the former player up to now? Recently, during the NBA All-Star Weekend, Iverson met up with Anscape in the lounge of the National Basketball Players Association. When asked how he's been doing lately, he replied that he was happy and satisfied, especially since he's at a point in his life where he's able to decide what he wants to do. In fact, the player admitted that this was one of the biggest reasons why he quit his job, because he was simply worn out and was ready to move on. And I'm glad that he's able to do just that. The man deserves it. So guys, that's all for the tragic, real-life story of the NBA legend, Allen Iverson.
Iverson now with it for Denver. Got fouled and won. Wow.
That's knowing how to play. Allen Iverson was getting ready to pass the ball, and Anthony Carter in the corner wide open. Heard the whistle and immediately got the ball.